Well, hello and welcome to another recording of Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast. We are back for more news, tech content, and wisdom from the world of marketing. Joining me is my co-host, a marketing speaker and consultant, spent his whole career helping his customers get their marketing simple but effective. He's the author of 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Marketing Plans and the creator of the Rogue to Rogue video series. I give you Mr. Roger Edwards.
Oh, thank you so much. And of course, my co-host is a digital marketing veteran. He's a speaker, trainer, and advisor with nearly 3 decades of experience who enjoys revealing visual storytelling techniques to help you build better online campaigns faster. I give you Monsieur Pascal Fintoni.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. I love the audience. This is episode 130, Roger Edwards.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a milestone, and I guess it is a milestone. I know we remind everybody pretty much every episode now, but this started as a side project during the pandemic when we were all locked down and we weren't allowed to go out. And of course, now we're all back out and about. We're all doing what we used to do. But we've kept it going, maybe not quite as often as we used to, but definitely keeping it going. And 130 is a milestone to be celebrated.
I think so. And we keep telling our customers now to celebrate all victories, no matter whether they are large or small. But for me, it's also this idea of, the desire to be helpful to others and for this to be a source of inspiration for new ideas, to keep you up to date with everything. But the format is a monthly magazine, which is what this is. And then supported by the companion live session where we spend half an hour looking at practical elements. And with the magazine, we have clear segments. Many of you will be used to them. And we always close with film marketing. And it was your turn to choose the movie to kind of review and reflect on.
Yeah, we are going to talk about The Running Man this week. Now, The Running Man 2025, as opposed to the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which was made way back in the 1980s. This is a much more faithful adaptation of the Stephen King original book.
Oh, super. Listen, as a treat to myself, I actually didn't read the show notes on this occasion, so I'm going to just enjoy discussing with Roger. I'm going to pretend to be someone that knows very little, which is not the truth really, about The Running Man. And then based on your account of the marketing campaign, will or will I not go and brave Christmas shoppers into our local cinema venue? Typically for me, it's the Metro Centre, Newcastle, or the Odeon in Durham. But Christmas shopping, I start with a vengeance where we are. So would I be brave enough to go and see that? But before we do so, we're going to go through our other segments, starting with In the News. And this time, Roger, I want to go for a quick fire round and go through all the news, not just selection, because they're all so important. Then we're going to slow things down with the content spotlights. We're going to let you know about some of the articles or videos we came across recently, again, as a source of inspiration. Then for me, something I look forward to is to look back, so we can look forward with this week in history, and then some recommendation in terms of marketing tech and apps. So yeah, this is our audio video magazine. Everybody get comfortable, have a cup of tea, have a pen and paper or an iPad to write down, again, ideas and suggestions for your next campaign. We'll begin with In the News.
Cadbury's Secret Santa has been crowned 2025's most effective Christmas ad. According to new Kantar research, the campaign was first introduced in 2018, hence proving the power of repeat creatives.
Well, ads from Nike, Lacoste and Superdry had been banned by the Advertising Standards Authority after it concluded the marketing was likely to mislead by overstating the green credentials of the products.
Instagram chief Adam Mosseri issued a memo entitled Building a Winning Culture in 2026, with a range of decisions including a return to the office 5 days a week, cancellation of recurring meetings, and a request for more prototypes and less slide decks.
Wow. Well, Newsweek is developing an AI-powered homepage modeled after the Google AI mode search experience to create a more conversational homepage that will function more like an assistant for users, boosting time spent on site.
Italian fashion house Valentino has received mounting backlash after posting a series of AI-generated adverts on Instagram, with followers calling the visuals cheap, tacky, lazy, and embarrassing.
Oh dear. Well, according to research by Dentsu, marketers are facing a paradox as consumers will embrace both the hyper-real and the handmade, and the digital and the deeply human in 2026.
The Guardian has reported that Ryanair is shutting down its frequent flyers members club after only 8 months. 55,000 people signed up to Prime, generating £4.4 million, but passengers benefited by more than 6 million.
Where Primark has become the official go-to destination for fans of Stranger Things. From 𝗓𝗵𝗲 t-shirts to 1980s Hawkins jackets and character-themed pajamas, and even upside-down takeovers of the in-store cafes. Wow. I mean, that is quite a set of news. So very, very quickly, something from the very bottom. Are you a fan of Stranger Things?
I have to say, Pascal, no. And I'm a bit embarrassed actually because we did watch the first couple of series, I think, and we just got really fed up with it. I thought the first series was exceptional, and then it just seemed to get very repetitive, and it looked like they were trying to reopen doors that they'd closed. And after about, I think, halfway through the third series, we just stopped watching it. So no, we've completely fallen out of love with it, and haven't caught up with it. So I am aware that there is a massive amount of hype going on about it at the moment, but I know nothing.
No, well, season 5 has started, and we're waiting patiently for the second half of season 5 to be screened at the end of this year. So I went back to the beginning, but like you, I struggled a bit with season 3, 4. I had no memory. I have to say, by starting again, it was delightful. I'm a renewed fan, but more importantly, I've also sorted out my Christmas shopping because my family is also a big fan. So as I'm heading to France in a couple of weeks, I'll be going to Primark this weekend and gathering, Stranger Things memorabilia. But let's move on to then Ryanair. So you and I use Ryanair for business and pleasure. Were you ever a member of Prime?
No, I do try to avoid flying with Ryanair, Pascal. Gosh, I'm starting to sound like a real miserable git already, aren't I? I've had some really bad experiences with Ryanair throughout my career. Historically, I told a story of effectively being kidnapped by Ryanair once, where they had a flight which was so late, and yet we were all on the plane and the door was closed, and I think the flight was about 6 hours late because we were on the tarmac and it had been a snowy day, and the reason for me to fly to Dublin, which was where I was going, had passed by the time the flight eventually left. I was going to a meeting in Dublin, and I said to the crew, there's no point me going to Dublin anymore because the meeting that I was meant to be going to has been and gone, and it's not going to be able to be rearranged for this afternoon. But they wouldn't let anybody off the plane. Now, British Airways would have let you off, and British Midland at the time would have let you off. But no, Ryanair, they've closed the doors. We don't get flight dispatchers back because that costs a lot of money. So I literally had to fly to Dublin to fly back again. And ever since then, I thought, I really just can't be bothered with this airline. Now, I only appreciate that they are very cheap, although I don't think they're as cheap as they used to be with all the add-ons that you've got to keep going, seat allocation, baggage, and printing out your boarding passes. But yeah, I appreciate they have a place, but their customer service is absolutely appalling, and that's why this frequent flyer thing just sounds like another Ryanair stitch-up, to be honest.
Yeah, but for me, it's not the cheapness, is that they do have a diverse range of destinations. And if I want to go back to France, and I'll be using a secondary or tertiary airport, not Charles de Gaulle or whatever, it's been very, very helpful to me. But you're right, you've got to almost kind of put the blinkers on and ignore the experience. I remember many years ago, we went to France, and I think I was gifted like a fast track ticket for some reason. So I had one. Denise, my wife, didn't have one. But we said, never mind, we'll be sat next to each other because we booked the seats. So they called in over, perhaps the precursor to Prime, have you got a fast track? Yes, I do. So off we went, fast tracking, to be put into a long corridor. And then eventually the other passengers arrived as well. So Denise, my wife, joined me within 5 minutes time. So it's just all complete nonsense. But for me, the reason why I picked this news is about decision and using decision based on information and forecasting. Don't tell me that somebody out there couldn't put together an Excel spreadsheet and kind of go, do you know what, guys? If we get, X number of people and they all ask for this and that and the other, we may be in trouble. So either we reset, what's permitted within, the Prime account, or we don't go ahead. So to me, it's just about decisions. So I would therefore to move on to Valentino using AI to create adverts, and Newsweek using AI to create a conversational homepage. Um, I I despair really at this what's happening right now. So surely we've not let go of common sense and logic, have we?
Oh, sometimes you do wonder, don't you, the decisions that people make. And I guess in this automated world, and we're using AI more and more, I wonder whether the convenience trumps common sense. You know, people do things so fast, they don't check things, they don't think about things, and therefore they start letting things through which you normally wouldn't have been let through before. And there was an example recently where somebody published an article in an online magazine. It may even have been a printed newspaper as well. And it still had the AI prompt at the end saying, "Would you like me to work out any of these ideas into a full article, or would you like me to look at a different thing?" And that was literally printed in the article. I think nobody checked that. They just copied and pasted it straight in. And I think that this world we're living in now is so convenient and fast for us to do things that we're just losing touch with common sense and reality.
Now, for people who are perhaps joining the show, episode 130 for the first time, please understand, Roger and I, we speak and train individuals on how to use AI for marketing. Absolutely right. We love the techniques and technologies of today, but we want, forego the key principles of, engagement, creativity, and putting customers first. And for me, if you think about what's happening with Valentino, it's all back to your point about bypassing established processes. Where was quality control? Where were the focus groups before you release it into the ether? Take 10 people, sit them down, say, look, watch those adverts, and they will tell you they are cheap, tacky, lazy, and embarrassing, and therefore you don't go ahead with the campaign. So there's not even quality control anymore. And the Newsweek one, I'm not convinced that people will want to do that. I mean, the complaints right now about those AI assistant, they are just annoying and as unhelpful as the paperclip or the dog from the early version Microsoft Office. And I was sharing with you, in the green room, Emma Thompson, the actress and film producer, who's literally she was very colourful language to explain that she'd been using this software forever to write her scripts, and suddenly comes this AI assistant that is literally getting in the way of her creativity. But she has a talent. She doesn't need any assistance. So I think for me, for the advice out there for marketers and entrepreneurs, just be very, very careful about the offer to you for an AI plugin. Do you remember the chatbots, everyone? And how did that go? But let's move on then to another decision taken by Instagram. Return to the office, cancelling meetings, and more prototypes, less PowerPoint. What do you think?
Do you know, I came across it was either a tweet or a Threads post this week, and somebody said, "When did we start calling PowerPoint presentations decks?" And I thought, wow, I'm usually the one that has a moan about language, but I've heard management consultants using the term deck for decades. I'm sure I remember hiring a guy from Ernst and Young or something like that 25 years ago when I was working for Royal London, the big corporate, and he stood up and said, "I've got a deck to walk you through." So I don't think that slide decks is anywhere near a new terminology. But again, we've got to be careful that we don't allow automation to remove our humanity. And that's not just for the customer, is it? It's also for the people who work for the companies. And I'm not sure I agree with this return into the office 5 days a week just purely to make a point. People can work very effectively from home, and if that works better for them, then so be it. But yeah, cancelling recurring meetings and stopping overuse of PowerPoint is absolutely right if it restores humanity and if it makes the workplace a better place to be.
No, absolutely. And I think for me, the point about the meetings, Adam Mosseri was saying, are we quite sure that those meetings are required? They're in the diary. Sometimes they are put in, years in advance. We will have a monthly sales meeting or whatever. And maybe that month, there's no need for a sales meeting. Maybe a quick quarter of an hour checkpoint meeting via Teams is sufficient. So I think, in there, people need to kind of reclaim, make it sensible. So, let's talk about Cadbury's Secret Santa because I really like this advert, and I think that they are very lucky because the actor who plays, the key messenger, if you will, is very very good. But I did not recall that it started in 2018. But this idea of the power of repeating the messages and the creative by sticking to the same brand, the same thing, because there is temptation, isn't it, every year for people to sit down and say, right, what is the new campaign for this year? And clearly, customers, B2B and B2C, they don't mind so much repetition.
No, absolutely right. And I'm sure we've said it on this show before, but marketers can become so involved with a campaign that they tire of it well before the intended customer. And you've always got to remember that as the marketer, you are not the customer. You are delivering something to the customer. The fact that you are very au fait, very comfortable with the concept doesn't mean that anybody else is as in-depthly involved as you are. I think I remember reading, way back in the sort of the 80s and 90s, some of the most successful marketing campaigns like For Mash Get Smash, the Smash Martians, the Cadbury's Flake adverts, and the Guinness, the one with the seahorses coming in on the waves. Those campaigns were stopped well before the public felt they needed to be, and it was not because they weren't effective. It was because the marketing department had got fed up with them and wanted to move on to better things or different things. But the public was still engaged with those adverts, and they still worked. So you've got to be careful that you don't effectively kill your own darlings here. And I think that kudos to Cadbury's here. If they found something that works, let's face it, Christmas happens once a year, and it's in a quite tightly packed space. And I bet that, how many times do people see these adverts? 2 or 3 times, maybe. They're not sitting there analysing every detail. So familiarity is actually quite a good thing.
No, thank you. And so they've not jumped in the bandwagon of what is this year's Christmas advert, to be part of the competition and this very strange narrative. So you and I, of course, I predicted many years ago about greenwashing and Nike, Lacoste, and Superdry got caught out. They're claiming that's not true, but over to them and to the consumers to decide. But for me, I close very, very quickly on the 𝗏𝗬's research about marketers facing a paradox. Consumers will embrace both the hyper real, as in the digital world, and the handmade, the digital and the deeply human. And at first I thought, I think that's been the case forever. So thank you, 𝗏𝗬. But we marketers and business owners who are connected with our customers will do just fine.
Yeah,
But that's important.
it comes back to what you said before, doesn't it? Are we overstating green credentials? Are we misleading people? It comes down to the fact that even though we've got all this automation now that can create things fast, we've still got to test things. We've still got to make sure that it resonates with customers. We've got to do the focus groups. We've got to make sure we're not upsetting anybody. And I think that the speed at which we can do things these days is stopping us from just putting these basic checks in place.
Yeah, very, very important. Slow down a bit, put those checks in place. And I think, which is what I'm going to discuss later on today, be careful about the micro tasks that feels like it fills your day, but actually perhaps don't make a big, big difference. So let's slow down, if you don't mind, Roger, things down a bit. And we're going to move on to the second segment, the content spotlights. So in this segment of the show, we surprise each other with a discovery from the interweb, as I call it with affection. It could be an article, could be a podcast, could be a video. What have you chosen for episode 130, Roger?
Well, I saw this article on a website which is called Tom's Guide. I have to say, it's not a website I've come across before, but it's quite a good website for reviewing tech. And this article is called "OpenAI Tip to Launch Ads on ChatGPT," and there's already a huge backlash. And this is an article by Amanda Caswell. And it obviously drew my attention, A, because it's talking about AI. Secondly, it's talking about ads. And at the moment, it seems to me that adverts are becoming more and more intrusive and more prevalent in our daily lives. I think the first example of this was, I subscribe to Amazon Prime, and mainly I subscribe to Amazon Prime so I can get delivery quick. But of course, that gives you access to the films and the TV series on Amazon. But of course, if you want to avoid the adverts completely, you've got to pay a supplement on top of the basic Amazon Prime subscription. And Trisha and I started to watch a film the other day, and I pressed play on the film and the adverts popped up, and there's a counter in the corner and it was 3 minutes 49 seconds. And I'm there thinking, that's nearly 4 minutes of ads we've got to sit through before this film starts. Now, I'm sure that the ad breaks within ITV and all the other commercial channels probably come in at about 3 minutes, but there isn't a counter in the corner that makes you realise it. And I just thought, oh, this is just, I hate this. This is absolutely ridiculous. And I got really, really grumpy about it. And it just made me realise that adverts just seem to be becoming more intrusive again. We maybe went through a stage where people were backing off a little bit, but now everywhere you go there are adverts popping up. Even if you're paying subscription fees, you often have to pay a higher subscription fee to avoid adverts. It happens on YouTube, it happens on Spotify, it happens on Netflix, and lots of media websites, news websites have so many pop-up ads that it's almost impossible to read the article because the pop-up covers up what you're trying to read and you can't move it out the way. You can't get rid of it for 15 seconds or something. And you just think, ugh. So when I saw this, that OpenAI were thinking about adding adverts to ChatGPT, I thought, oh, come on. Where is this going? And of course, some people, I pay the £20 a month or whatever it is to use the paid version of ChatGPT. I would probably get quite annoyed if I start having to look at adverts. So this article really just goes through this whole thing. So OpenAI has quietly started testing what it calls app suggestions within ChatGPT. And obviously, these are appearing for people who pay the premium. There was a Peloton advert, apparently. The backlash kicked off after a viral screenshot showed ChatGPT interrupting a user's conversation to suggest they install the Peloton app. This created a lot of bad feedback on the forums, apparently. Now, OpenAI's defense is that he's saying it's not really an ad. They're claiming it has no financial component, and therefore, we're not really upsetting people. We're not really advertising. But he did admit that it was probably a test that had gone wrong, or it was confusing people. And there's just this overall trust factor that the article goes through that, yes, we know that these businesses need to make money, but how far can you push it before the ads do become so intrusive and so annoying that it becomes a barrier for people to actually pay the premium? I found myself with Netflix getting so annoyed with the with some of their practices that I actually downgraded my membership because I was fed up with them constantly upping the price. So I think that you've got to, maybe this is the theme of today's podcast, you've got to listen to what your customers are saying. And I think that what's happening at the moment with all this automation and all this speed to market is we're forgetting to ask customers what they want. Now, people will put up with adverts if it can bring the price down, but there's always a balance. And I think we're going over the line at the moment. And that's what this article really gets into. So what do you think?
Oh, I love what you just said there, which is, people don't mind so long as, and then, dot, dot, dot. Because I think for me, advertising is understood to be, I get it because I'm getting a free service. Well, in the case of ChatGPT, it wasn't free because they scraped all the internet in a few months. So you and I, everybody is listening today, have helped build, ChatGPT with our information and our content. But what they could have done is a bit like what Wikipedia does, ask for a donation and continue to have access to a free service. You don't have to pay £20 a month if you feel that your usage is occasional, but at £2 a month, so there's so many different ways just to create a sense of community and engagement and to have vested interest. But adverts are part of the disruption, irritation. I mean, what did you used to say? Forgive me, when you used to do your presentation with John the Wine Man. I've forgotten now. Sorry, I shouldn't have.
Engage, don't enrage.
You so much. So for me, that's where it's happening is now that the digital world is a source of people just being annoyed and frustrated and so on. And when, as I'm going to mention in a moment, we're all about brand building and making sure your reputation precedes you before you even get to the AI summaries and so on. I don't understand the behavior of Netflix and Amazon, because it's not required. They are filthy rich. I'll give you another example. Are you familiar with a platform called Tubi? Tubi,
No,
Tubi.
no.
So Tubi is a free streaming service. You can watch, I would say, pretty old, TV series and movies. Some recent one as well, and they've got some, blockbusters as well. But the adverts are at the start. But the adverts are movie trailers. So you're
Mhm.
still in context, you see. So it's almost like going to the movies. You sit down, watch the trailers, watch the adverts, and you get on with the main feature. And then, more importantly, they leave you alone for the duration of the movie. And then there's some trailers at the end. So for me, it's the context as well. It's the
Yes,
elegance
yes.
of the manner in which you introduce the sales messages, as opposed to you're trying to get on with the watching, or in the case of Emma Thompson, you're trying to get on with writing your script, and then comes along this irritant and disruption, and that is not what we do. If you're in need of advertising revenue, speak to your advertisers and think of a way for you to blend with the immersion, the experience, as opposed to stopping people in their ways. So thank you for the reminder. It's very, very timely. And I think I would add to speed, which I think you mentioned, the low cost as well. So you can imagine, ChatGPT, OpenAI saying, "Oh, come advertise with us. It's only going to be X dollars." So it's going to be very, very appealing for some people who are particularly strategic. And you're going to add, so you're going to be the source of irritation as a brand name, which is not what you want. So actually, interestingly, we've done this again whilst we've not spoken to each other. My article from Business Insider is very, very similar in terms of warning people about the future. So the title is as follows: Google, Microsoft, and Perplexity, my favorite, share tips on how to boost your brand visibility in AI searches. And it was written by Lara O'Reilly and Jeff Weiss from Business Insider, both, very, very talented editors and researchers. Now, when you think about this title about Google, Microsoft, Perplexity sharing tips on how to boost your visibility in AI searches, you could be forgiven to think that this is going to be a quite lengthy technical report that I might as well brace myself for. And actually, Roger, it was so brief. I got a bit of a shock. I thought maybe something had broken on businessinsider.com website. And I would say compliment to, again, the writers for capturing the essence, but also back to this idea of doesn't take long to make you think and make you act. So let me quickly take everybody through the advice. You have the link in the show notes, but I would do this right now, if not next year. So Danny Sullivan, known to many of the SEO community out there as director of Google Search, is very, very blunt and pretty much saying, are you doing everything you can to be useful to other human beings? That is his number one recommendation in the age of AI searches and summaries. And pretty much saying, if you've understood the key principles of SEO, which is to research what people want, research what people are looking for, and then provide your unique perspective and insight into that, then you'll be absolutely fine in the age of AI searches. So essentially, Roger, nothing new, nothing's changed. Don't reinvent the wheel. Do the Cadbury stuff. Keep doing your campaign, but are you doing everything you can to be useful to other human beings? Then move on to Microsoft Bing. So Krishna Madhavan, who's the product manager, suggesting that the way to be useful to other human beings, have good, clear, comprehensive Q&A sections, have sitemap, work with a schema to help search engine understand your site, and actually something that I have forgotten about. Speak to your developers, everyone, if you don't know this, but start to use the index now protocol so that AI summaries are looking for recent content, so you can do that as well. It's suggesting as well to use lists and tables as opposed to what they call long walls of text, and advising to using very limited punctuation, and therefore do not use em dashes, do not use symbols, do not be super creative, just use the punctuation that we all use and have been using for the last 50 odd years. And finally, with Perplexity, Jesse Dwyer is saying, well, really, when it comes down to it, you will be part of an AI summary for sure, but have people heard of you before? Because if they haven't, frankly, they'll ignore you. So nothing's changed there. So everybody, please invest in brand building, reputation building, and brand marketing, and essentially be ready for the have they heard of you before moment in the AI summary. I'll close by reading out to you a statement that I think was everything. The way to win remains the same: disciplined fundamentals, no shortcuts, no gimmicks, no hype, no quick innovation.
What about storytelling? Is that important in all of this? I mean, yes, brand is important. It always has been. It's just the landscape is different. But is AI finding the stories that people are telling about their brands and the stories that people are telling about their products and reflecting that back in search results?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if it's in words, video, audio, infographic format, it will be listed. But are the stories matching the search behavior and the search intent? That's really, really quite important. But certainly in the age of AI summaries, having done enough work this year on it for my clients, it's the art of being explicit. Your website, your social media, everything has to now go into a much broader and deeper way of being useful to others. No longer can you be succinct, to the point, implicit, mysterious, enigmatic. You've got to basically be generous with your information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that.
So I thought, that was reassuring for everybody. Just keep doing what you're doing and ignore, the marketing of AI. Could you argue, Roger?
Absolutely. Don't believe the hype.
So listen, as we said time and time before, again, none of this would be possible without the work, dedication of pioneers and thinkers of the recent and distant past. It gives me great pleasure to move on to our next segment, This Week in History.
In 1968, Douglas Engelbart and his team of researchers present a 90-minute public technology demonstration, including such innovations as hypertext, video conferencing, and most famously, the computer mouse. I didn't realise that the mouse dated back as far as that.
In 1995, the 𝗷𝗫𝗄 becomes the first searchable full-text database of the World Wide Web. It was also the first search engine to provide machine translation with Babelfish, a free email service, and the first practical capture schemes to protect you against fraud.
In 2000, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the martial arts epic, directed by Ang Lee and starring Michelle Yeoh, and Chow Yun-fat, finally gets its US premiere.
Yes, and in 2001, inventor Dean Kamen unveils a Segway self-balancing battery-powered vehicle on the TV show Good Morning America. The Segway uses computers and motors on its base to keep itself upright while the user is riding it. Wow.
I had to laugh when you were reading out the 𝗷𝗫𝗄 one there. It's also the first search engine to provide Babelfish machine translation. Did they actually realise that the Babelfish was a paragraph in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I'm going to say that they would. Come on, these are the kind of people that. But Alta Vista was my very first search engine. So, there was only access to the internet before then in forums and that kind of early alt.text dot whatever. So you had some interactions, but searching the web, and I think Alta Vista was also the first one to allow you to search for images. It was such an amazing experience, to this day. 1995, before Google, before Yahoo, before all of that, and in a way, I feel for them because they should still be around, right? They were the first. They kind of paved the way for others. But I don't know. It always breaks my heart that the first one out is never the last one on the finishing line.
Yeah, I know. It's always the case, isn't it? That when you think back to the early days, the original web browsers, and you used to have to load up a CD of the browser and all of that, and your modems and everything. And of course, they've been supplanted by different brands now.
It gave me a bit of a shock that it's been 25 years since the release of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I mean, that was a very, very successful movie. But you read out in the news it was finally getting its US premiere because, oddly, this movie had done the rounds already, gone in festivals, it'd been, winning awards and so on. But there was a delayed release in the US because distributors and marketers were worried that this was a subtitled movie. And they didn't believe that it would work, so they kind of eventually gave in, but they did a very, very small release. So actually, the movie was re-released in 2001 and had a massive, massive success. So it took the better part of an entire kind of 12-month period for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to get his recognition, and he won the Oscars for many awards and so on. But 25 years ago, that's making me feel old, much more than the Alta Vista search engine. Actually.
Yeah, it's funny actually. There's a piece of music in the film Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's called "The Yearning of the Sword," and it was featured as the relaxation track in Body Balance way back, probably around about this time. And it's such a powerful and such an emotional piece of music that I still bring that back into my classes even now. And in fact, I think it was the 3 month period before the last one, so probably in middle of the summer, I brought back Crouching. It's one of those pieces of music that people actually, they don't say, "Can you do Yearning of the Sword?" It's always, "Can you play that sort of Oriental?"
Yeah.
It's got violins in it, and it's got it's a string section, but it's very, very, very,
It's
very
absolutely.
emotional. It's incredible.
I have the
Um,
CD. Actually, I
yeah,
have the CD, and
yeah,
because you've got the Torco drummers doing the
yeah.
battle, the fight scenes, and so on. It's beautiful. Actually, I might watch it again very, very soon. Now, confession time, Roger. I have never been on a Segway. Have you?
No, I haven't. But the reason I chose this is that when we were on holiday recently in Fuerteventura, I suddenly thought there was loads of people on segways. Now, it
Right.
was probably because the resort we were in had quite a nice wide promenade which swept all the way around the resort. And yeah, there was lots of people on segways. Now, I hadn't realized again that they dated back to 2001. They've never really been a thing that has appealed to me, to be perfectly honest. However, I think what attracted me to this was that I hadn't realised that it does actually have built-in computer motors to effectively keep the rider upright. I thought that when you were on a Segway, it's a bit like being on a bike. You're in charge of how it's balanced, and if you tip the wrong way, you'll fall off. But apparently, it's all controlled within the motors and within the gears that it actually keeps you upright, and that was a bit of a revelation to me. So maybe I've never really felt like I need to go on a Segway, but if I had the opportunity, I probably would be less reticent, should I say, because I think, oh, maybe it's not just as precarious as it might seem.
No, absolutely. And very, very quickly closing on the first computer mouse, 1968. So In 2003, I delivered my very first SEO masterclass. Back then, it took just a morning. There was so little to learn and do. But I remember, to kind of give me a bit of a lead up to where we are today, I gave people a potted history of the internet, and I had a photo of the computer mouse, which was essentially a wooden box with wires and kind of a ball that would give you the X and Y axis and say, from the computers to this to that. But yeah, everyone just look for it. It's there on the internet, the first computer mouse, but 1968. Again, I forgot about that. Excellent. Thank you again. Always a pleasure to make that trip down memory lane. But let's get back into the present, everyone, with our selection for marketing, tech, and apps just after this. So, Roger, what hidden treasures from the interweb have you discovered that can make life easier as a content creator and marketer?
Well, these are a couple of updates, actually, I guess, to existing tech and existing marketing tech. But it sort of reinforces one of the points that's emerged during this podcast, I think. So the first one is Google's. It's part of Google Gemini, actually. It's called Nano Banana. Is their sort of image generating piece of software. Now, it's interesting when it comes to AI, I've always been more nervous with the text versions, the generative text, like obviously ChatGPT was the first one, but they all do it now. And I guess maybe that because my background has been that I've always written articles way back. I used to write articles for newspapers, then for websites. I've always been a little bit more nervous about an AI coming along and generating an article, which is why I almost insist that I write the article first and then maybe get the ChatGPT or Gemini to refine it or edit it, as opposed to generating it from nothing. But I've been less sort of worried about visuals like photographs and pictures because I guess I'm not an artist, I'm not a photographer, so I don't feel perhaps as threatened by AI in that sense. And I do have to say that this latest iteration of Nano Banana is actually quite good. For example, I uploaded a photograph of myself, one of the ones I've used as a thumbnail on my YouTube videos. And just for the sake of argument, I said to it something what I thought was just completely random, like put me in a Game of Thrones style castle banqueting hall and have lots of sort of knights and people in the background eating and drinking, and have serving wenches with huge flagons of foaming beer wandering around. And literally within about 2 seconds, I get this image, which was actually astonishingly accurate. In fact, the first version probably looked a little bit too digital, and I said, well, actually, you probably need to bokeh the background a bit, make the background a little bit blurry, which it did. And I actually thought, wow, that actually could be real. It was genuinely so good. So Nano Banana is really worth looking at if you're into visuals. And I think what Nano Banana does now, which has been a little bit beyond AI up to now, is that it can handle text, pretty much any font, any sort of text that you want, and it can scale the text to different sizes. It's almost like a vector graphic. You don't lose the integrity of the text. And I think that quite a lot of images with text up until now have been quite dodgy. So that's worth looking at. The second thing is Canva has had yet another update, Canva Video 2.0, and it now includes some HTML email functionality. So Canva is fast becoming this sort of go-to generic. Anything you need from a marketing platform, Canva can do it. They're almost getting to the stage now where the video editing capabilities within Canva are along the same lines as the free versions of CapCut or DaVinci Resolve. They're really, really giving people some incredibly high-powered editing techniques here. And I guess I sit here and I just think, again, this is really good. It means that people have got access to tools which don't cost a lot of money and allow them to create really quite impressive stuff. But as we've already said today, that's not enough. people are forgetting about the strategy. People are forgetting about checking things. People are forgetting about meeting customer needs. And whilst I absolutely adore where these platforms are going and how incredible those images and Nano Banana are, I still realize that people are going to be using this stuff to put out slop or stuff that is misleading or stuff that doesn't meet customer needs. And once again, as a old git, as an old marketer, I just implore people to do the strategy. Work out who your customer is, what's the problem you're trying to fix, and how does your product or service solve that problem, and why should people buy from you? Don't just send out the tactics and the communication messages until you've absolutely nailed that. And if you need to use AI to do that, fine, but don't avoid it, and then you can get the maximum benefit out of these fabulous apps.
I mean, no, just very, very quickly before I share my selection, it's a bit like when I do my AI for digital marketing workshop, we spend a lot of time on the audience and behavior and so on and so forth, and then we do the content last. But you can see people are just itching. So can we not get on with the good stuff, Pascal? Can we not just have a bit of fun? So what I'm doing now in reverse, because actually we should embrace, being human after all. I say, all right, I give you half an hour to have fun with whichever tool. And then once that's over, let's get back to, being marketers again. And I think, therefore, we should all allow a sense of discovery, a sense of wonder with the tools that you heard a moment ago from, Roger, Google Nano Banana, which is just extraordinary. Have you tried using it to animate static videos, static images?
Oh, no.
Oh my goodness. If you have products, this is just like incredible. And Canva, which is the gift to small business owners and marketers out there, it's absolutely incredible. So yes, have a play time, but eventually draw the line and then start to be strategic about it. And actually, this is why my selection is about reclaiming good marketing habits. I'm going to say, Roger, even go further, good content marketing habits. So my clients have confessed to me that they've lost their way a bit, and that's not just AI. It's been 2-3 years now where they said, you know what, I think we're just running around putting fires out. We're just busy doing micro tasks, one after the other. But actually, we used to be a bit more organized in the past, Pascal. We used to be just a bit sharper. So listen, it's fine. We're catching it. Let's forgive ourselves. Let's be kind to ourselves, but let's get back to good habit. So habit number one, planning ahead and working on batching your content. We used to do that. We used to enjoy doing it. People doing it a little less. So I want to reintroduce everybody to Buffer. I am myself a lapsed user of Buffer. The Buffer is the social media management tool. But as you can imagine, over time, Roger, it has moved on beyond, its kind of initial offering from a good 10 years ago now. So you can have a content ideas board. You can put your ideas in there. You can actually have online collaboration. Yes, you have AI assistants, but actually, I would say you could pass that browser extension with a visual calendar, so you can look ahead, and you can even have what they call the start page, where you can actually put together the beginning of a campaign. And they have also an incredibly generous free plan. So let's get back to looking ahead a bit more. 3 months, 6 months. Let's go back to planning ahead, batching. And actually, you're going to find it really to be just, such a relief not having to chase the next idea, the next content bit within a 48-hour window. So that's Buffer. Next one. Do you remember Meet Edgar?
I
Roger?
do. I do, but I've not thought about it until today when I saw you putting this forward as one of your selections.
And I suppose my view would be, of course, you and I would recommend people to have an open mind and look at other tools and techniques out there. But sometimes, some of the oldies, they work well. So Meet Edgar, for some of you, is a wonderful solution for marketers and creators out there, where you have an extensive library of evergreen content. It could be video, could be podcast, could be articles. And listen, you put all the hard work in. We have put the hard work in, reaching episode 130. And what Edgar can allow you to do is to look back at your library, put things into categories, and then put together a campaign where you're going to remind people about, what you have been creating over time, particularly if it's still relevant. It's evergreen after all, and have a campaign that can run parallel to more kind of spontaneous form of content. So, Edgar is going to plug into your social media marketing strategy, but this is to do with building your brand, building your reputation, but also, bear in mind you comment about speed and the lack of recall, reminding people about, what you stand for. So, buffer mit Edgar, some oldies in there, but they're going to help you reclaim good marketing habits.
I have got the Buffer app on my phone and on my iPad, but I can't say I've actually opened it for years. In fact, I'm surprised it is still on my app. I'm surprised I haven't deleted it, but maybe it's time to revisit.
No, absolutely. Thank you again for doing the research, Roger. So we have reached the final part of our audio video magazine. We always look forward to it. We hope you do so as well. This is Film Marketing, just after this. So, Roger, it was your turn to choose the movie for Film Marketing, which was a recent release, The Running Man, adaptation of a Stephen King book. People are going to say we choose Stephen King a lot, but the guy writes so many books, so of course we're going to choose many movie adaptations. But before we move on to reflecting on the making and marketing of The Running Man 2025, let's watch their first trailer.
Stop filming me!
Ben Richards, 35, married, one child, in medical crisis.
We need money for a doctor now.
Ben, watch us up.
Employment status, blacklisted. But there's still a way out for you. It's the biggest show in the country.
Bloodlust is our birthright! Set it free! Welcome to The Running Man!
People on these games never come back.
I'm not trying to get myself killed, so kiss my ass twice.
Right there is why you can win this game. The rules are simple. Survive 30 days. The entire nation hunting you down. And get your family out of Slumside for good.
I'm gonna come back here and burn this building down. I promise.
That's the spirit.
This is America, goddammit! And we don't put up with no bullshit! Yes! Hunt him down! Stop filming me!
Have you ever wondered if this game is rigged?
Guess we'll find out.
You might be moving up too fast.
Hey, buddy. You're on Freebie.
You better run! I got a grenade!
Back at you.
I'm still here, you shit eaters.
Hey, big boys!
Are you crazy?
I mean, that is bang, 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 blood and thunder, isn't it? You really do want to go and see that film after that trailer, Pascal.
I agree. I mean, of all the movies that came out this year, and Christmas is always a tough market for movie makers. This is the one I'm like, right, I must find the time to go and see The Running Man.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. We were half joking about yet another Stephen King film. I think this year there have been quite a lot of Stephen King films coming to the theatres. But as you say, he's been writing for 50 odd years, and he has a lot of books, and a lot of those books are on their second iteration of films now. Because The Running Man arguably could be classed as a remake of a film that was released in 1987, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll talk a little bit about the original version of The Running Man, but what we've got here is a film by Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright was the director of one of my favourite films of recent years, The Sparks Brothers. He also did that film about The Last Night in Soho, amongst others. He's got a reputation for being, a little bit different, action-packed, but a little bit edgy, I suppose. We've got stars Glenn Powell, Alyssa Ben, Sienna Ben, Josh Brolin, Lee Pace, Jamie Lawson. And basically what we have is another film set in a dystopian future where a game show effectively has an individual, the running man or the running woman, being pursued all over the world by hunters hired to kill them. And of course, it's all broadcast to the masses. So, again, very similar in concept, I guess, to the likes of the Hunger Games and the Squid Games on the TV Netflix experience. But Stephen King did this nearly 50 years ago. The Running Man was written in the late 70s. And ironically, the original book was set in the year 2025. And I guess that's probably one of the things that prompted Edgar Wright to make the film this year, was that the original book referenced this particular year. So it's the second film of 2025 that we've reviewed that's been written by Stephen King. The other one was The Long Walk, which you talked about recently. The Long Walk, again, is based upon a dystopian future game show, but they are really quite different in tone and are really quite different in the way the films have been put together. The Long Walk was confined to 50 boys effectively walking down a road, and it's very dialogue heavy, it's very emotional, and you get to know the characters really intimately, so that when the characters ultimately die, you actually do feel emotionally invested within them. Whereas The Running Man effectively takes place across the entire world. And possibly this is maybe why it might not be as successful as The Long Walk, is that you've got the protagonist, Ben Richards, who is on the run from all of these hunters, but he's effectively meeting up with people almost episodically. So he's on the run, he'll meet up with a character, they interact, and then the hunters catch up with him and he moves on to the next set piece. So it's set piece after set piece. You don't really get invested into anybody other than him as the main protagonist. And I think perhaps that's a little bit of a problem compared to the Long Walk, where you really become involved with all the characters. Now, I did mention that there was an original film made in 1987 with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Running Man, and that film really was nothing like the book, other than the name. Yes, it was a future game show. Yes, it was violent, but the storyline was completely and utterly different. And that's why I think that people shouldn't see this as a remake of the original Running Man, because this new film adheres much more closely to the original book. And possibly, again, people who are seeing it as a remake might be disappointed because of the difference between this and the original. And also, the original Running Man film wasn't part of an established franchise. Now, obviously, at the time the original Running Man came out, we were right in the middle of Star Wars fever, Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters, all the things like that. And the Running Man was just a one-off, and it sank, and it sort of maybe has a bit of a cult following. But now, this new film is just not going to live up to anybody's expectations they may have as a remake. So see it as something completely and utterly different.
Oh, that's
Now,
interesting. Sorry to jump in, Roger.
no,
Because you're making me realize, that what you're listing there are the marketing challenges. So you and I could imagine being in that meeting where they're discussing, what's going to be working in our favor as marketers and promoters and what could be working against us. And I would imagine that whiteboard, if that's what they used, would have had, are we going to have an audience who's going to be thinking this is a remake, looking forward to it? Or they're going to say, oh my God, this is a remake and I didn't really like the 80s one, therefore I'm not going to bother with that one. But there was one thing that Edgar Wright did, and the cast and crew, they actually did pay homage to the original one, because I have seen situations in the past where the new version, the team behind the new version, is really being unkind to the original version. I'll give you an example, was Conan the Barbarian, oddly, which Arnold Schwarzenegger. So you had the 81 version, and then they had the more recent version with Jason Momoa. And the two directors who did the recent version were really, really unkind to the original version, as a result of which they got a massive backlash from the fan of the original, and they sabotaged, the marketing campaign. What I liked and what I saw, on social media was actually inviting Arnold Schwarzenegger to watch a preview, to have a cake. They even, I believe, is referenced as a character in a story because his silhouette is in the banknotes of the prize money. So I had to applaud, this idea of, but of course you can't ignore that there was a first effort at it, and the results were where they were. But the fact that they actually did an homage, I thought, you know what, very, very clever move. But I think it came from the heart. I don't think it was like contrived as a marketing tactics.
no, I think you're absolutely right. But very quickly, production-wise, the film, again, a lot of it was filmed in the UK. I think we forget that quite a lot of modern films do get made in the UK. They filmed around Wembley Stadium. There was a lot of shooting in Glasgow. Glasgow appears in so many films as a substitute for American cities. I think it's because it's up and down. It's sort of very much, it has a San Francisco feel to it. So they use the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Armadillo and the OVO Hydro in Glasgow, which are quite modern looking buildings anyway. And I think that comes through in the visuals, and there's a lot of filming in Bulgaria and elsewhere. So the film hasn't done particularly well at the box office, and I wonder whether this is a combination of the problems and the challenges that you've just alluded to. First of all, from a marketing point of view, it's a very male-heavy film. And even watching the trailers, you can see that apart from Ben Richards, the protagonist, he has a wife in the film, but she doesn't appear in the film that much. It's a very male-centric cast. I think there is a running woman as well. I think there are three runners, two are male and one's female. There is another female character that comes in towards the end who's very important to the plot, but it's like I said before, it's very episodic, so he moves from one set piece to the next, and the final lady doesn't appear until effectively the final set piece in the third act of the movie, and therefore you haven't had time to get to know this character, and therefore she becomes quite incidental, even though she's quite pivotal to where the film ends. So I think from a challenge point of view, it probably comes across as quite a male-orientated movie, and I think perhaps that comes across in that first trailer that we watched. Now, we reacted quite positively to that, but I can think that maybe half the audience are looking at that thinking, "No, that's too violent. I'm not really into that." So the second trailer, I think, was a little bit more balanced. I think you see a little bit more of his background. You might see more shots of the wife. You might see more shots of Amelia, who appears towards the end of the film. And the second trailer, joyously from my point of view, brings back a song by the Electric Light Orchestra, which was released in 1979, called "Don't Bring Me Down." It's one of the best ELO songs ever, and it's one of the best rock songs ever. And seeing that in the second trailer just absolutely blew me away, and it's a great update on the version without losing the the essence of the original song, and I think that second trailer really stands out for that. But the other challenges that they had really was that the studio was actually going through a massive transition at the time, Pascal, and the effectively the head of marketing was leaving, and they were waiting for a new head of marketing to come in. And even though they had quite a few campaigns ready, quite a few of these almost became limbo, and people didn't know what to do with them, so they didn't press the button soon enough. And the launch came closer and closer and closer, and they weren't moving the launch of the film, although there was a little bit of manoeuvring around to avoid it coming out at the same time as the Magician movie. I don't think the marketing got off the ground, and that's down to the studio and down to the change in personnel, that they just took their eye off the ball. So yes, we've got those trailers. There was a lot of posters, and I think the posters are really quite... Some of them are simple. Hunt him down, you've just got the running man's face. But some of the posters are actually quite busy, and they've got almost like different posters for the different experiences. So you've got an IMAX poster, you've got a Dolby Cinema poster, you've got different posters for different countries. I don't feel as if The Running Man has a proper brand running through it, like perhaps The Long Walk did, which we talked about a few shows ago, where they had the character posters and the sort of soldier imagery and the colour scheme. This just seems to be, we'll just create a load of different posters, and we don't need to worry about them looking as if they're part of the same thing. What did you think of the posters?
Yeah, but to your point, it got to the point where they had to make decision, but no decision were taken, because you would do different poster series, and then go for your key art, as the parlance go, and then you can have supplementary ones for either the experience, the IMAX and the D-Box and so on, which is awful. I've done it once, I think, when you're being shaken around, for the duration of the movie. I mean, for me, what I thought that they could have done a bit better with more time is, obviously there's some very, very striking, calligraphy and typeface for The Running Man as a title. I should have checked, but I don't know whether that has echo of the cover of the book, the original book that was written by Stephen King and so on. But I think they could have played a bit more on that. And the Hunt Him Down poster with a close-up of Glen Powell, unfortunately, is exactly the same as Tomb Raider, the version that was done a few years ago. And I myself, and maybe, I've spent far too much time thinking about film marketing over the last, few years, but I couldn't move away from Tomb Raider as the poster style. So I find quite distracting. But as a collector, as a film fan, then you're spoiled for choice, and if you, like me, like to sometimes gather posters and cards and so on, and have a bit of a memory box when you go to the movies, there's definitely something there for you to take away.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong; they have done quite a bit of marketing, and I think one of the strengths of the film is that it does create this in-universe feel for the dystopian future that The Running Man takes place in. And ironically, again, the similarity here with The Long Walk is that, don't forget, Stephen King wrote this nearly 50 years ago, but the society that he described in those books is shockingly close to where we are now. And, when you read these books 50 years ago, you'd think, wow, this is just horrible. This would never happen. But, you look at The Running Man, you look at The Long Walk, and you look at the United States of America, and you think, we might not be that far off, this happening and this actually becoming a reality. And I think that the creation of that world, because it's so close to where we are now, just makes it all the more realistic. So a lot of the marketing played upon that sort of world. So there was a strategic partnership with a canned water brand, which I have to say I've never come across, called Liquid Death, which became the official in-film beverage sponsor. So you've got the game show host Dan Killian, he's leading into this sort of "murder your first" tagline, which is used throughout the ad campaign for the liquid death water. There was a lot of interactive stuff going on Reddit for some reason. Now, Reddit's not something I use to a large extent. I'm much more of a fan of social media like X, or Twitter before it became X, and Threads. But apparently it's been quite successful on Reddit. They've almost had a game within Reddit called Dodge the Drones. Now, in the film is followed by drones, which is, again, it's quite topical, especially with what's going on in Ukraine and that sort of thing. So there was quite a lot of interaction going on there. Glenn Powell's been out and about a lot, as you would expect. He's done his morning routine videos. He got together with a social media influencer called Ashton Hall. They were promoting the first trailer by doing separate little videos of his morning routine. And he's been out and about doing a lot of social media stuff, in addition to all what you would expect, the trailers and the interviews at various Comic Cons, New York Comic Con, CinemaCon, etc. I think they were ambitious in their goals for the marketing, but that fact that the whole marketing team was changing just stalled everything, or it wasn't as successful as it could be, or people just backed off a bit because they were a little bit uncertain as to what to do. So it's a shame. These ideas almost seem to be a bit embryonic, Pascal, and they didn't really come to pass, or they needed another month or so before the film was launched to actually really bed in.
That's my reaction, because you and I love film. We love marketing. So film marketing is just, a wonderful gift to you and I. But I hear the reality of life, work, So, I've been there before where, teams change, or I've been part of a company that was bought by a bigger one and everything that comes with it. And it's incredible how days can become weeks and can become months in terms of lost time that you can't reclaim. Because certainly the London premiere that I saw extensively online, because I have some contacts in the film industry that have worked on the movie, so through their own kind of personal Facebook page and Instagram account, some of them were the chasers actually in the movie. I suddenly discovered out of nowhere that the premiere literally was like in 24 hours time. I was even looking at whether I could get some train tickets, Roger, to go, because I think there's something magical about premieres. But I think there was this sudden messaging online because of the premiere in London Leicester Square. And then it was almost like, and over to you, the audience, to go into the movie where, people's diary is challenging, this time of year anyway. So I wonder whether this is going to be one of those where people will revisit either in the digital format of a Blu-ray box set or online. But, I want this movie to do well. Why wouldn't you? I think, everybody's worked very hard. I love Edgar Wright's style. I think it's great. And there's something, he's very, very great. He's a great guy. I mean, when you watch his interviews, you can see he loves movies, loves making movies, but he also loves the legacy. That's why, I go back to this idea of inviting Arnold Schwarzenegger to just have a moment with them and to thank him. I think it speaks to the values and principles that were behind the movie, but they got caught up in the machinery. And I hope that, and I think that's something that I reflect a lot, particularly with film marketing, where do we, as an audience, do we need to be bothered by how much a movie is making on the opening weekends? Is it really part of the narrative? Is it really part of the story? Or should we just embrace, the fact that it's Stephen King behind it? It's, a wonderful cast, a wonderful crew. They worked very hard on this, and we should be getting behind it and not be suddenly distracted by essentially the machinery, of Hollywood, which is, this movie only made so much at the opening weekend, therefore it's not very good, therefore let's not bother to go and see it.
No, you're right. And I think, again, whilst they had all the turmoil within the marketing team, which sort of scuppered some of the marketing activity, it also seemed to me that they were a bit nervous about when to actually release it. Now, again, it was originally intended to be released on the 21st of November, which would have given it an extra few weeks worth of marketing time. But they got worried that it was going to clash with Predator Badlands, that it was going to clash with Now You See Me, Now You Don't, you know, two other big popular films being released at the same time. So they originally decided to move it to the 7th of November, and then they changed it again to the 14th of November. So it was very uncertain about the release date. And I think combined with the marketing team changing, I think that's just caused them a few issues. The other thing that I was just going to mention very briefly, again, similarity with the Long Walk, is that the filmmakers decided to change the ending. Now, they did that with The Long Walk, and they've changed the ending of The Running Man as well. Now, I've seen The Long Walk after we've done we did the review of it, and I actually think the way they changed the ending of The Long Walk works really well, and it fits with the narrative of the film. I haven't yet seen the Running Man, and the ending of the book is incredibly powerful. But yet I can see why they would want to change it.
Got it.
Because as an ending of a movie, it probably isn't the right way to finish a film. But I've not yet seen, and I've managed to avoid spoilers, so I've not yet seen the film, and I don't know how different the ending of the film is to the book. So that's something that I've got to look forward to, in addition to the whole movie experience as it is.
Well, listen, on the strength of the trailer that I watched again with you, and on the strength of your wonderful research and retelling of your findings, I want to see this movie on the big screen and be part of the experience. And I'm, because I think also for me, it's interesting because it is about a commentary on society and what is happening right now. And I remember many, many years ago, I was on a walk with my granddad, and he was just asking me what I liked, what I didn't like. So I was mentioning TV series I would watch and things like this. And I could sense he was disappointed with mostly American TV series and things. But he was just saying to me, and this is something that takes me back to the 80s and 90s. He said to me, I'm just worried that television is going to become mean television. And I said, well, what do you mean by this? We call them called Grandad Papy in French. He said, well, I see people are going to be taking part in games that are going to be mean. And we're just kind of discussing it. And that was it, really. And then fast forward to where we are today with the likes of, The Apprentice and the likes of, all the others. And this version where there's element of being quite rude and quite hurtful towards, the others. Now, so far, these are just words, being thrown at people around the room. But I think mean television is certainly something that is part of society. And one thing that Stephen King does very well, and I'm hoping The Running Man 2025 does as well, is a warning to all of us that there's a line between entertainment and fiction and what's happening in real life. And I think for me that's probably the reason why The Running Man is an important movie.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, again, we're not far. A lot of these reality TV shows, I mean, there is a reality TV show where people are hunted, isn't there? It's on UK. It may even be called Hunted. And of course, they get arrested at the end. It's not that much of a jump for it to be, hunted to death. Scary.
So another fine selection, Roger Edwards. Thank you so much, and thank you to you. This is the end of our audio and video magazine. Thank you so much for watching or listening to Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast, and staying all the way to the film marketing segment. Please subscribe and leave comments in the usual places, and make sure that when you do marketing, it is done right. I was Pascal Fintoni, and he was Roger Edwards. Bye for now.